and mum. D. Nilo premandana karuna prachur Heno Prabhu Kotagela Chayatakur Kaha Mora Swarup Rupa Kaha Sanatan Kahadasa Raghunata Patita Pavan Kahamora Bhakta Juga Kaha Kaviraj Eka Kali Kota Gela Goranataraj Bhashane Kuti Bo Mata Annale Pashibo Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Gele Pambo Se Samba Sangira Sange Je Koi Lombila Se Sangana Paya Kande Narotamada Je Anilo Premadana Karuna Prachur Heno Prabhu Kota Gela Chayatakur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur. Okay. English. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy. Where has such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? He happens to be his disappearance day today, too. Where are my Sarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Thank you. That's all right. Where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Okay, so before we read the Bhagavatam, we'll read these little biographies of 3 exalted souls, including Srinivasacharya. All right, let me put this up first. All right. So on this 20th day of November 2023, we're reading about 3 exalted souls who departed on this day. This is their anniversary of their disappearance. And the first is Gadadhar Das Goswami, not to be confused with Gadadhar Pandit, part of the Panchatattva. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has basically 2 groups of associates. One group, such as the Dwadasha Gopals, Abhiram Gopal, Gauridas Pandit, Dhananjaya and others, serve Sri Nityananda Prabhu in the mood of Sakya Ras, or friendship. The second group always stay merged in the mellow of Madhurya Ras, conjugal love. Sri Gadadhar Goswami is the united form of Chandrakanti Gopi, an expansion of Radharani's effulgence, and Purnananda, an expansion of Lord Balaram's dear girlfriend. Thus, Gadadhar Das was an associate of both Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Krishnadas Kaviraj describes Lord Chaitanya as Radha Bhava Duti Suvalita, characterized by the emotions and bodily luster of Srimati Radharani. Gadadhar Das Goswami is this luster, this duty. Gadadhar Das is sometimes called the personification of Sri Radhika's divine effulgence. While traveling with Lord Nityananda, Gadadhar would sometimes become absorbed in Madhurya Prema and begin acting and speaking like a Braja Gopi. Putting a clay pot of Ganges water on his head, as if he were a gopi, he would call out, "Who wants to buy milk? Who wants to buy yogurt?" As one of Lord Nityananda's chief preachers in Bengal, Gadadhar Das delivered countless sinners, atheists, and Yavanas. It says Yavanas, that's young people. Yavanas, I think, is a misprint. Once, while tasting Krishna Prema, he began dancing madly and chanting Krishna's holy names outside the Qazi's mansion. The irate Muslim magistrate stormed out of his house to chastise him for disturbing the peace. But beholding the dazzling, attractive form of Gadadhar Das, the Qazi became stunned and dropped his anger. Gadadhar affectionately embraced the Qazi and said, "Gaur Nityananda have appeared in order to deliver everyone with divine love by distributing the sweet nectar of the holy name of Hari. Why don't you chant this sweet name of Hari?" The Qazi replied, "Tomorrow I shall chant the name of Hari." Hearing the Qazi inadvertently chant the holy name filled Gadadhar with happiness. He said, "Why tomorrow? You have already chanted today. And this powerful name of Hari will destroy your sins and purify your existence." From that day on, the Qazi took shelter of Sri Gadadhar Das Goswami. His samadhi is in the 64 samadhis area. That's quite an interesting story. I forgot that one. Okay, and it just so happens that Dhananjaya Pandit's biography is just preceding this one. He's in second great soul. Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat described Dhananjaya Pandit as Vilakshana Mahanta, having all the characteristics of a great personality. He took part in Lord Gaurachandra's Navadvip Kirtan pastimes before moving to Vrindavan on Mahaprabhu's order. Carrying only a kamandalu, that's a little water pot, but remaining absorbed in love of Sri Krishna and Sri Chaitanya, he traveled widely and preached. He established deities of Gaur Nitai, Sri Gopinath, and Damodar. In Braj Leela, he is Vasudam, one of the Lord Balaram's 12 Gopal associates. His samadhi is in the 64 samadhis area. And now, Srinivasacharya, I just need to find this. So he's a major figure. After witnessing Lord Gauranga's sannyas ceremony at Katwa, Chaitanya Das and his pregnant wife visited Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. Quote, "Soon your wife will give birth to a son named Srinivas," said Lord Chaitanya, "and through Srinivas, all the Bhakti Shastras of Rupa and Sanatan will be distributed." Close quote. When his father left this world, Srinivas visited the remaining associates of Lord Gauranga in Katwa, Navadvip, and Jagannath Puri. They blessed Srinivas and gave him valuable instructions for spiritual advancement. Seeing his absorption in Gauranga Prem, they knew he was, quote, "an embodiment of Gaura Shakti, the energy of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu." Srinivas came to Vrindavan, toured the 12 forests, and took Diksha from Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Sri Jiva Goswami taught him the complete philosophy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Acknowledging his vast learning, Sri Jiva gave Srinivas the title Acharya. Accepting Sri Jiva's order, Srinivas and his two friends, Shyamananda Prabhu and Narottam Das Thakur, pioneered the first transcendental book distribution party. Vrajbasi Sankirtan Party Ki Jai. It's right here. They took a bullock cart of the Goswamis' devotional writings from Vrindavan and passed them out all over Bengal and Orissa. That's kind of a little misleading. There's a whole. They were carefully transporting these original manuscripts to Bengal so they would be copied. Right? They didn't have printing presses, and they were stolen along the way. Right? And the Shyamananda and Narottam were just devastated, and they went on to Bengal. But Srinivas said, "Well, maybe I can retrieve them." So he did some investigation. He found there was a town, a substantial town nearby, with a king named Virhamvir, means I'm very powerful. And he had a whole crew who would check out the pilgrims. There was an astrologer, right, who predicted, they have an extremely great value treasure in their bullock cart that they're carrying. So he sent out his, band of dacoits. And they didn't hurt anybody, but in the middle of the night they stole all the Shastras. And when these three devotees woke up, they were devastated. These are the original manuscripts. They're going to copy them. They lost them. So Narottam and Shyamananda were just devastated. But Srinivas, he said, "Well, maybe let's investigate." So he looked around and he found this town. So then the king was kind of pious. He liked to listen to Bhagavatam. But the Bhagavat court pundit he had didn't really know what he was talking about, right? So Srinivas, was sat in the class, and then any questions? He raised some questions, and he started to give his own, understanding of the story. And he was so cogent and so learned. He had studied under Jiva. See, these three had been trained by Jiva Goswami. That the king was really taken with it. And the next day he asked him to give the class. And the king just became completely blown away, and he became a serious Vaishnava. So Srinivas Acharya, some time ago, there was we were carrying some books and they disappeared. You have any idea where they might be? He says, there, and he had them in his inner compartment there, and they were the books. And it said that the CC was one of them, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that Krishna's Kaviraj was just devastated when he heard it, Some say he committed suicide, but I don't think that's true. And, that's proven not to be true. So then it had been on the bottom, and had come out on the top somehow, of the pile of different Shastras, the CC. So he retrieved them. He had this initiated king now, who was very loyal. He took them, and they went on to Bengal, and you could imagine how Shyamananda and Narottam felt when they saw them. So that's how the book distribution party meant. It meant go to Bengal, get them copied, and then distribute them to the Vaishnava gradually as they get copied from one to another. So that was the first book distribution party. So he goes, let's see. Okay, so Srinivas Acharya initiated many disciples, Ramchandra Kaviraj and others, wrote songs full of bhakti, the Sadgoswamastakam, and introduced a special kirtan style. When leading kirtan, he would sometimes lose his voice from chanting so long. I can relate to that. I think he was preaching mostly in Orissa, right? Yeah. He leaves out these things. Besides his external activities of preaching and writing, Srinivas Acharya practiced intensive Raganuga bhajan, Raganuga Bhajan is the spontaneous internal worship of Radha and Krishna based on the mood and sentiments of the eternal residents of Sri Vrindavan Dham, such as the gopis. While doing Manasi Seva, service to Radha Krishna within one's mind in a mentally conceived spiritual form, he would often bring tangible paraphernalia from these meditations back with him upon returning to external consciousness. One Srinivas sat Lord Gauranga on a jeweled throne within his mind. Then he worshipped the Lord with a golden-handled chamara whisk and a 5-flower garland. Pleased with his service, Gaura offered the garland back to Srinivas, who then immediately awoke and lost the meditation. A surprised Srinivas found the sweetest flower garland he ever smelled hanging around his neck when he returned to the external consciousness. Got a ways to go with this one. Garland. Huh? Oh, that came from Srinivas?
No. His first disciple,
Acharya, what's his name? Prabhakar Acharya. Yeah. He also got it from the spiritual realm like that. A surprised Srinivas found the sweetest flower garland he ever smelled hanging around his neck when he resumed external consciousness. Another time, Srinivas was in his Siddha Sarup as Mani Manjari, watching Srimati Radharani, Sri Krishna and the gopis in Holy Leela. That's the joyfully throwing colored powders and dyes on each other. That's been expanded to, we have a lot of holy festivals going on. The gopis told Mani Manjari to supply colors to Radhika and side with her in their war against Shama. The earth shook from their furious battle. Srinivas's meditation abruptly broke. His body was completely covered from head to toe with fragrant and exotic rainbow-colored powders imported from the spiritual world. Holy Leela ki jai! That's H-O-L-I, by the way. It always happens around Gaur Purnima, right? Yeah. I remember when I used to go for the festival and everyone's throwing dye, but we didn't do that. We didn't integrate that into Gaur Purnima. Srinivasacharya Samadhi is in the Dira Samira Samadhis area. Srinivasacharya ki jai, Dhananjaya Pandit ki jai, Gadadhar Das Goswami ki jai. Okay, so now we will move on to the Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this looks like Rasika. Okay. Yeah, looks legible. So we already announced the date, so we'll begin. Shri Hiranyakashipur Uvacha Bala Evam Pravadati Sarve Vismita Chetasaha Gyatayo Menure Sarvam Anityam Ayatotitam Shri Hiranyakashipur Uvacha Bala Evam Pravadati Sarve Vismita Chetasaha Gyatayo Menire Sarvam Anityam Ayatotitam Shri Hiranyakashipur Uvacha Bala Evam Pravadati Sarve Vismita Chetasaha Gyatayo Menire Sarvam Anityam Ayatotitam. Alright, let's forget about Shri Hiranyakashipu Uvacha. That's enough of that. Bala Evam Pravadati Sarve Vismita Chetasaha Gyatayo Menire Sarvam Anityam Ayatotitam. Bala. Bala Evam Pravadati Sarve Vismita Chetasaha Gyatayo Menire Sarvam Anityam Ayatotitam. Who else? Bala Evam Pravadati Sarve Vismita Chetasaha Gyatayo me nide sarvam. Anityam ayatotitam. Agree. Bala evam pravadati. Sarve vismita chetasaha. Gyatayo me nide sarvam. Nityam ayatotadam. Go with it. Bala evam pravadati. Sarve vismita chetasaha. Gyatayo me nide sarvam. Anityam ayatotitam. Bala evam pravadati. Sarve vismita chetasaha. Gyatayo me nide sarvam. Anityam ayatotitam. All right, in the interest of saving time, I'll just read.
Evam pravadati.
Evam pravadati.
Sarve vismita chetasaha.
Sarve vismita chetasaha.
Yatayo menire sarvam.
Gyatayo me nide sarvam.
Anityam ayatotitam.
Anityam ayatotitam. Okay, in the interest of saving time, I will now read the synonyms by myself. You can follow along on the verse. Shri Hiranyakashipu Vacha, Shri Hiranyakashipu said, Bale, while Yamarāja in the form of a boy, evam thus, Pravadati, was speaking very philosophically, Sarve, all, Vismita, struck with wonder, Chetasaha, their hearts, Gyataya, the relatives, Menide, they thought, Sarvam, everything material, Anityam, temporary, Ayata, Uttitam, arisen from temporary phenomena. Hiranyakashipu said, while Yamarāja, in the form of a small boy, was instructing all the relatives surrounding the dead body of Suyajña, everyone was struck with wonder by his philosophical words. They could understand that everything material is temporary, not continuing to exist. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 2:18. Andabandahimende nitya sokta sharirinaha. The body is perishable, but the soul within the body is imperishable. Therefore, the duty of those advanced in knowledge in human society is to study the constitutional position of the imperishable soul and not waste the valuable time of human life in merely maintaining the body and not considering life's real responsibility. Every human being should try to understand how the spirit soul can be happy and where he can attain an eternal blissful life of knowledge. Human beings are meant to study these subject matters, not to be absorbed in caring for the temporary body, which is sure to change. No one knows whether he will receive a human body again. There is no guarantee, for according to one's work, one may get any body, from that of a demigod to that of a dog. Now what Prabhupada means here is, will he receive a human body again in the next life? Because even if you go down to an ant's life, you'll eventually come back up. But that's what he's referring to here. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya comments, Aham mamabhimānādi tvayotam anityakam mahādari yatotam cha nityachapi yatotita asvatantraiva prakriti swatantro nitya eva cha yatartha bhuttas chapara eka eva janardanaha. Only Janardan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is ever existing, but his creation, the material world, is temporary. Therefore, everyone who is captivated by the material energy and absorbed in thinking, I am this body, and everything belonging to this body is mine, is in illusion. One should think only of being eternally a part of Janardan, and one's endeavor in this material world, especially in this human form of life, should be to attain the association of Janardan by going back home, back to Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Hiranyakashipu's conclusion here is not that this material life is temporary, and we are eternal souls, part and parcel of Janardan, and we should therefore practice Krishna consciousness and go back home, back to Janardan. No, that wasn't Hiranyakashipu's conclusion. That's the conclusion Prabhupada gives in the purport. But Hiranyakashipu was basically instructing his nephews and his sister-in-law that what's the point of lamenting again and again? Material life is temporary because the body is temporary, but the soul is eternal. He who you're lamenting for is still alive. You know, Hiranyaksha is about to take birth as who? Ram or Kumbhakarna. Right? That's the next set, the second set. He didn't know that, but it's a fact. As I pointed out every time I've given class during this time, Hiranyakashipu was taking it only so far. Prabhupada gives all the conclusions in his commentary, and sometimes he brings some of that commentary into the translation. And so it sounds like Hiranyakashipu is telling him all to surrender to God, but he's not, because he thinks he's God. That's his big illusion. As we learn in the 7th canto, later in the 7th canto, when he confronts Prahlad, where is your God? You know, I don't see him. And this is the main disease of the demons, is that they try to take the position of God. And I'm trying to take the position of a fool. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unminitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. Okay. So, we're all born into this darkness, this ignorance, and the only hope is to come in touch with this knowledge as given by a realized soul, a pure devotee. Because then we can receive the seed of bhakti, of the creeper of bhakti. Very dramatically illustrated by Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Rupa Goswami. 19th chapter, Madhya Lila. Very famous verse, those who know it can chant with me. Brahmande brahmate kon, bhagyavan jeev, Guru Krishna pasare pai, bhakti lata bij. So what this means is that we're all wandering up and down the universe. Brahmanda means, basically, literally it means Brahma's egg. But it means the egg-like universe. Why is it an egg-like universe? Because it's open in the middle, right? And it's covered with earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind. So it's just like an egg. So it's called Brahmanda. And Brahmati means we're wandering in different planets, different bodies, life after life. And sometimes, often, say, we don't really realize ourselves, and then Brahma sleeps, and as asleep there's a whole devastation there, because he's not annihilated, but everyone merges into the body of God, Bhadakshay Vishnu, I believe. Finally, if he dies, then we merge into Mahavishnu's body for millions and billions and billions of years until he breathes out again. So we've been doing this for we don't know how long. So this is what Brahmande Brahmate Kon, the fortunate soul, by the mercy of Guru, gets Krishna, and Krishna it's able to plant, the Guru plants the seed of the creeper of bhakti in the heart. And what is that seed? Prabhupada explains in the commentary. It is the holy name, it is the instructions of how to practice devotional service, and it is the faith. It is the faith that this is the truth and one will practice. All of that is part of that seed. And then if just getting that seed is fortunate. But then how do we water the seed? Basically through the Shravan Kirtan Jal, the water of hearing and chanting. Beginning with Kirtan, Sankirtan, coming together. I chant, you hear, you chant, I hear, and it goes like that. That is the most important process of watering. And then there's also the need of avoiding the offenses, which are in the form of weeds that can choke off the actual creeper. Or really heavy-duty offenses in the form of the mad elephant. You're cultivating this delicate little garden featuring this creeper, this vine of bhakti, which Lord Chaitanya says if you do it right and you cultivate it, it will grow, grow, grow. Eventually it'll pierce the coverings of the universe, and it will eventually take shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet, and they will come to fruition. And that fruit is the fruit of love of God, which you can eat forever. You can taste forever. It's not a material fruit. So, but there's a danger of committing offenses. And the worst offense is to commit an offense against the the Acharya, the great soul, the pure devotee, which is like a mad elephant. I've never seen one, but I can imagine what happens if they encounter a nice little garden. Just wreck the whole thing. So we should be very careful, and we should know what the other offenses are. That's why we chant them every day. Harinam Chintamani begins with the discussion of the offenses. And I learned, did we learn that in the class? That this Harinam Chintamani is actually a record of Haridas Thakur's actual teachings on the holy name. Bhaktivinoda Thakur collected those, and that's what he formed the book out. I thought that, this was like Jaiva Dharma, where there's he had taken all the instructions and made it into a very fascinating novel, which is basically a series of conversations, But this was different. This is Haridas Thakur's actual teachings on the holy name. And he wasn't studying, I think, he of course heard, but he was very erudite as well as chanting. When he had time, 16 hours a day of chanting, you can imagine, that's what Prabhupada said. 190 rounds a day. Just trying to conceive of that. We're struggling with our 16. So Haridas was definitely Namacharya, and these are his teachings, and he begins with avoiding the offenses. Because if you're too offensive, even at the beginning, you'll never get a taste, and you won't be confirmed, really. So let's just study the purport here. I mean, what he's doing is he's trying to console them by explaining that your Hiranyaksha is still alive, nobody dies, and you shouldn't waste your life lamenting like this. So that's what his teaching is. And he quotes Yamarāja in a child form, and his famous verse that he asked his son, Yudhishthira. You know the story? They're out in the forest, all the Pandavas, I think Queen Kunti's with them, and in exile. So one of the main things they need is water, drinking water. So everyone was thirsty. So I think he sent Bhima first to find some water, and he found this beautiful pool, of clear water. And he's about to drink himself, and he's got the container, and he's going to bring it back. And then he hears this disembodied voice, which is actually Yamarāja, right? And says, "You cannot take any water. This is my pool, and till you answer my questions." So Bhima is not anyone to be deterred by that. He's stronger than 10,000 elephants. So he said, "Yeah, right." So he just took some water, but he immediately fainted. He went unconscious. So he didn't come back. So Yudhishthira then sent Arjun, I think, right? Sent Arjun. And same thing happened. Then he sent the twins, if I remember. Everyone, was rendered unconscious. So Yudhishthira himself came, but he's Dharma personified. If this pool belonged to someone else, even though I'm so thirsty, I'm not going to drink it. So he didn't drink it, and said, "You can drink when you answer my questions." And he had a whole series of questions, which are recorded in Mahabharata. And they're really great, the questions and answers. He gave all the right answers. But the most famous one is, what is the most amazing thing in the world? And the answer is quoted in the previous purport. Ahanyahani bhutani gachanti himalayam sheshakstavanamichanti kimaschaya matakparam. And he even mentions Yamarāja in there, who's asking the question. He didn't know that. This is a disembodied voice. So what it means, ahanyahani, day after day. It mentions bhutani, but really this pertains to human beings. Because what are lower animals going to think? They can't articulate. So day after day, countless human beings are dying. I mean, they've counted them. There's millions and millions every day in this little earth. And those who are left, who remain, they're seeing this, and of course it strikes them. No, this will strike me sometime. But they actually live their lives in such a way that they're thinking as if they won't ever die. They're acting that way as if they'll live forever. No one wants to think, "Oh, I'm going to die tomorrow. I may die tomorrow," because it's going to definitely spoil your enjoying mood, isn't it? If that's what you're dedicated to, that's what your life is. So Maya is one of the main influences, that it helps you to forget your own mortality for some time, anyway. Right? Until your relative die, you come down with a deadly disease, cancer. Am I going to die? No, I think we can, cut it out. It says, "Oh, thank God, I survived." And then you forget again. That's what Maya does. She covers. There's these two potencies, right? Avaranatmaka Shakti and Praksheptatmaka Shakti. I mentioned this last night. And the Avaranatmaka Shakti is covers your awareness of who you are, who Krishna is, what the relationship is. You forget everything. But then you're pulled down, you're pulled into the three modes of nature and the material energy and the birth, old age, disease, and death, the threefold miseries. That's also part of her power. This is Durga Shakti. So those two, we've been suffering from the external energy since time immemorial, meaning since we came here. And in the spiritual world, those energies aren't there. We're not covered, we're enlightened. Who we really are, we're servants of Krishna in our specific rasa. We were reading that in the readings in the beginning. There's a certain Swarup siddhi that we have, just suitable for our feeling for Krishna, how we want to relate to him, how we want to serve him. And we're happy in that relationship, and Krishna reciprocates. And that's our natural thing. But it's all based on service. I go back again and again to this nice phrase from one of Jiva Goswami's Sandarbhas. Prabhupada doesn't say which one it is in the second canto. It's in the purport to a very famous verse. Akama savakoma karma va moksha kama hudada di. Tivena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. And this is, I won't give the whole context, but the context is important. But he's saying if you're free of all material desire, whether you're free of all material desire, you're a very advanced yogi, or you're full of all material desire, sarvakamava, or you desire liberation. If you're intelligent, you'll worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, in great intensity and attention. In other words, tivrena bhakti yogena. Not just superficial, tivrena means intense, you see. So in that purport, Prabhupada gives a wonderful explanation of what this pure devotion means. So he's quoting from Jiva Goswami, and he says, and Jiva Goswami writes this is this little prose, and he says, Bhajaniya Padma Purusha Sukha Matra Swasukat Vam. The whole philosophy is right in there. And what it means is, Bhajaniya Padma Purusha means the supreme person who is worshipable by all. That's the first thing. Bhajaniya Padma Sukha Matra. Only, Matra means only, his happiness, his pleasure. Swasukatvam. To only take your pleasure in giving pleasure to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the definition of pure devotion. And immediately the material mind rebels. Well, what about me? What about my pleasure? I'm just going to think of something, like I'll take pleasure only in your pleasure. Oh, that's weird, you know. But that's who we are, because we're part and parcel of Krishna. He's Anandamaya Bhyasat. He's always blissful. But he takes pleasure in reciprocating with countless living entities, jivas. You read the Krishna book. Krishna's getting pleasure out of playing with his friends, and on an equal level. He loves it when they chastise him. What kind of a big man are you? They climb on his back. It's a famous line in the Krishna book. And they have, okay, now we're going to play in two teams. And those who lose the contest, they have to carry the others on their back. So Krishna, his team lost, and he had to carry on his back. And he was aligned. This is Pralambasura. You remember Pralambasura? He was disguised as a cowherd boy. So Krishna knew who he was, but he had a plan. He's going to let Balaram take care of him. So Pralamba was on Krishna's side. So he had to carry Balaram on his back. So he said, now's my chance. I'll carry him far away and I'll kill one of them. Because he had seen what Krishna could do, so he tried to avoid him. Because Krishna. So he carries, and Balaram. And this is characteristic of Balaram. It takes him one. First he's challenged and said, "What's going on?" And then he understands and he reacts. That happens all the time. It happened with the chess match with Rukmi. They cheating him. Finally, he blew his top, so to speak. Balaram took his club and smashed Rukmi's head. So the same thing happens here. He's carrying, and then he's saying, "What's going on?" He was puzzled. And I said, "Oh, now I get it." And so he, increased his weight. So very heavy. So this Pralambasura turned into, he gave up his shape. They're shapeshifters, a lot of them. Putana could do that, and so he turned into the big demon. It describes his teeth. His lower teeth were reaching up to his nose. You know, he's got these fangs coming out. And big. So Balaram gives him a big hit on the head and he's dead. His blood is coming out. And he comes down, the coward boys finally catch up to him and they congratulate Balaram. You know, this is good. So that's what's going on in the spiritual world, but minus the demons. Prabhupada said there's no real demons there, but sometimes there's a cloud, and the gopis get scared. Oh, Keshi has come again, you know, and something. So there's a hint of demons. So that rasa can be there too, you know, saving them from the demons. So that's where we belong, in one of those positions, as a friend, as a parent, as a servant. There's also very sweet dasya ras going on. So we've forgotten that. We've given that up for billions of births, trying to imitate Krishna's suffering. So the amazing thing is that people don't take the lesson just from life. You know, when Krishna starts speaking the Uddhava Gita in the 11th canto, the first thing he speaks is this. He talks about this sage who took so many lessons from nature. Like the earth is so very patient and quiet. The dogs, very faithful. You know, it goes on and on. There's like 20 or 30 of them. Really, Yamarāja was doing the translation. He made a little book out of it. Transcendental knowledge from the natural way, or something like that. It was a distribution book. So that's he's starting like that, and we have these lessons. You can learn if you know. You read the 11th canto, then the whole nature can give you lessons just by living. This is similar to what Krishna does in the Gita. You know, the way it's put together, you come to the 6th chapter, right? You went through Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, then you get to Ashtanga Yoga. This is serious now. And then in the 22nd or 3rd verse, there's a description of Samadhi. And then that Samadhi, one can taste transcendental bliss through transcendental senses. Once experiencing this, you think there's no greater pleasure, you know, and you're completely immune to any suffering because you're transcendental. Like, you know, wow, it's quite an achievement, you know. But Arjuna says, I can't do that. Go alone, you know. He's a householder. He's a warrior. It's impossible. Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadraham. You know, that the mind is very flickering. It's as difficult to control as a hurricane wind. So Krishna says, yes, you're right. It's very difficult, but you can do it with practice. You know, so he's encouraging. He says, all right, but what if I fail? You know, I go off to the Himalayas or whatever, you know, I practice and I don't, then I've lost my position as a warrior and householder, and I've failed here, so I'm like a riven cloud. So he wasn't very optimistic. So then Krishna ends the chapter, and you can just, Arjuna hearing a big sigh of relief when he chants this. Krishna gives this verse. Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shuddhabam vajate yomam samayuktatamamata. So that described Arjuna. The greatest yogi is not the one who's sitting alone in the Himalayas, you know, working and practicing pranayama, getting this city. Oh, okay, now I can walk on water. Let's keep going, you know. No, that's not. The greatest yogi is one who's always has me in his heart, worshiping me with great faith and transcendental service, you know. So that's Arjuna. So he's encouraged by that. But then in the next verse, which is the beginning of the 7th chapter, Krishna is back to really instructing us. Maya saktamana parta yogam yunjan manashaya asangsayang samagramam yata gyasati tat shrinu. Now Prabhupada picks up on that shrinu, and he has a whole purport where he's quoting from the 2nd chapter, 1st canto. Shrinvatam sakata Krishna. That if you just hear about Krishna from the right source, the Mahabhagavat, then Krishna within your heart becomes very pleased. And he cleanses away all his anartas and abhadras. And that's the first of 5 verses culminating in realization, seeing Krishna within the heart and being free. But Krishna is speaking also for the general mass. How are we going to, okay, we understand now, you know. It says, now I'm going to tell you how you can have your mind attached to me without going through this Ashtanga yoga. And then he has those verses. First he describes basically the material energy, bhoomarapa anulavayu, this is our environment we've been living in, and the transcendental energy, the prakriti, the living entities, right? And then he starts describing how one can see him in the material world. All right, you're not going to be able to meditate and see me in the heart, but you can start like this. This is the start. Rasoham, apsakonte ya, prabhasmi sasisuriru. I am the taste of water, because I just explained, I am the energy of water, and I am also the internal force that gives you consciousness, and you have these senses. And so everything about the taste of water is my creation, including your tongue. So we taste water every day, you see the light of the sun and the moon, its fragrance, all the senses are covered. And in this way, we're beginning, meaning that we can see Krishna in our very environment, if we apply our consciousness and remember the Bhagavad Gita. So it's an important way to start. And then that naturally merges in, okay, well, what about that rasa? What about that water? Why don't you offer it to Krishna? In other words, it's all mine, I created it, now you offer it all back. Things that the things that you prepare, with foodstuff that you prepare with those objects that I'm just describing. In other words, you use all your senses, the knowledge acquiring senses and the active senses, in connecting yourself to Krishna. And that's the science of bhakti. And you find that if you actually begin to serve Krishna with not pure love, but affection, you're caring, you're feeling yourself entering into bhakti, the first stages, that's a great source of pleasure. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It's not that, oh, I aged out on that pleasure, I can no longer play basketball, what am I going to do? Yeah. I was a serious basketball player in the 12th, not 12th grade, but 8th grade and 9th grade when I went to high school. And I was thinking, should I try out for the team? I said, no, I'm not, I'm not that serious. I'm much more serious about getting good grades, So that, I gave it up. But there for a while there, that was, I was really thinking. But that's material life. Some things are interesting and attractive at first, and then something, you can't enjoy it anymore, or she leaves you, he leaves early. It's just one disappointment after another. But in Krishna consciousness, if you stay strict, there's always the taste in the Hare Krishna mantra. It just gets sweeter and sweeter if you're actually advancing. And the wonderful thing is, everything about Krishna consciousness becomes sweeter. The association, the deities, honoring prasadam, the festivals, So that's obviously not material, because it's not depending. Like someone sent me a friend a picture of an older devotee who's in not a wheelchair, but she has walker, but she still goes out on book distribution. And it showed her smiling face to face with the young couple who had bought this Bhagavatam, the little teaser Bhagavatam. We have the 8 chapters. And they were all very blissful. So that taste of serving Krishna doesn't need to wane with age. You may have to do different services or what you can't do. But that proves it's transcendental. It's a spiritual thing. Whereas all the pleasures that depend on a state of your body, they're going to be taken from you. They're going to be taken away from you. So where should we invest our energy and our attention? In learning how to take pleasure in Krishna's pleasure, and the pleasure of his devotees. That's the greatest pleasure. When you're able to serve his devotees, it's most pleasure when they get, So that's what's going on. Of course, Hiranyakashipu is not going to teach that. But he's finishing up his instruction, trying to console. But we need more than consolation. We want to know how to deal with it positively. This fact that we're all going to die. This fact that we're so temporary and fragile in this world. So that's where the idea of not wasting any time comes in. I keep chanting this verse. I'll just give you the third line. Turnam yateta napateta namrityavat. Turnam yateta means without wasting a second, strive. Just like, who was it, that king who had only a few moments left? Kadvanga, is it? Kadvanga, yeah. He was fighting, but he was fighting with the demigods in some battle. And so he asked as a benediction, well, tell me how long I have to live. Now the answer was a muhurta. Now muhurta can mean a few seconds, but it can also mean 48 minutes, right? So I always, so it's an interpretation, just a second. But it may have had, okay, I got 48 minutes to surrender to Krishna. So he came down, and started chanting Hare Krishna, whatever, But in any case, he became perfect even in that, because he understood the urgency of it. So we most of us likely have more than 48 minutes, to live. It's not a sure thing. The Russians are crazy. They can send bombs at any time. But we're also crazy. But the point is, you're ready at any time. If you're always thinking of Krishna, which is the goal, then you're ready at any time. That's the whole idea. And then you don't have to be part of this, this group that Yudhishthira is talking about. The amazing mass of people who live as if they'll never die. So there's a nice verse. There's so many nice verses. This one was taught to me by Mahavishnu Maharaj, the elder, who you may know because he became famous starting Dwarka. But he used to spend a lot of time here. I think it was before he was a sannyasi, right? He came here. But before he was officially a guru. Yeah. Anyway, so I chanted one verse for him. We were standing in line in Vrindavan. This was before he was I think, when did he take sannyasi? Was he here? Always he was a sannyasi when he was here. Okay, anyway, we were standing in line and for prasadam. And I asked him, would you like to hear a nice shloka? And he said, yes. And he pulls out a pad. No one ever did that before. You have to take notes. I forget what verse. It was some verse from the Karnamrita that I shared. And he also gave one to me. I didn't have a pad, but eventually I learned it, And here's the verse, which is right in line here. De heshti mangsudurire bimatam chajasva jaya sutari jasadama matam vimuncha pushyani sham jagadidam chanabanga tishtam vairagya raga rasikobhava bhakti nishtam. But now before I give you my poem, that last line is just amazing because it has this concept. Vairagya we know is detachment, very important part of bhakti, right? But he says, vairagya raga. He says, get attached to detachment. In other words, become very eager to be detached, And how to do it? Rasika bhava. Become a rasika. Become someone who can really taste the rasa, in which it just obliterates any material attachment. But the first part, so here's the little poem I put. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids and home. At every moment see that this world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. So that's the verse he taught me. He said this from the Padma Purana. I looked in the Padma Purana, I couldn't find it. But that's all right. It's definitely Shastric. Padma Purana is kind of, whenever you don't know where it came from, you say, I think it's in the Padma Purana. But it's definitely bona fide. So I think I'll end there because we're kind of over time. Any comments or questions? Vijay, I'm afraid we'll have to censor you today if you have a question because it's really late. Unless there are no local questions. Then, if you have a comment or question, we can entertain it. I think he just came to chant the verse today. Go ahead, Prabhu, but we need a mic for him. It's right there, over there.
Thanks, Prabhu. So, Hiranyakashipu, he's speaking this verse that it's transcendental knowledge, right?
It is.
It's transcendental knowledge. So, transcendental knowledge isn't received like normal knowledge that you can just read like a textbook and just, put it in your mind or something, memorize it, and then you have the knowledge. Transcendental knowledge is received in a different way through the heart, right?
I know where you're going with that, but go ahead.
So, well, I'm just wondering if we do consider this as transcendental knowledge, then what effect do we consider that it had on Hiranyakashipu or in his family, or if it was in the form that it was, it actually didn't have transcendental potency?
Well, from the beginning of this whole section here, where Hiranyakashipu is speaking all this transcendental knowledge, and he said, really? And the fact that it is Sri Hiranyakashipu Vacha. I said, well, I never noticed that before. How did they give him a Shri? I mean, we know he's a devotee, but he's a demon. And I said, well, maybe it's just because he's going to be speaking this transcendental knowledge. Maybe when he's chastising Prahlad or about it just says Hiranyakashipu Vacha. But no, it's still Sri Hiranyakashipu Vacha. So is that what they do with everyone? So I checked to see Kamsa, because he also talks a lot, So they're going to have Sri Kamsa Uvacha? They don't even give him an Uvacha line. It's not like Kamsa Uvacha. It's just that they say he spoke, and then the next verse they have what he spoke. So it was puzzling to me, and especially because Srila Prabhupada often puts some of the purport into the translation. You find that especially in the fifth canto, these big long translations, And so in one of the translations, it's mentioning, or what it says is, therefore one should not lament because that's the whole point here. One should not lament for those who die, who you love, like that. But isn't that what Hiranyakashipu was doing? I mean, that's what, when Hiranyaksha was killed, maybe he didn't lament so much, but he was furious. He went off and practiced austerities and became the Hiranyakashipu we know and love today. So, so where is this coming from, And so I looked carefully in the Sanskrit and said, oh, he doesn't really mention the Supreme Lord here, the Super Soul. That was Prabhupada added. So what I concluded, and actually, who was here? Shubha Vilas. And he's very learned, and he confirmed my, because he was also here and gave classes on this, that it's part of the demonic quality of dambha. You read the Bhagavatam, and that's actually the first quality mentioned. Dambho darba vimanascha, So damba means false pride. Prabhupada would always call it pride, which is, that's true. But it's false pride. It means like hypocrisy. You're trying to be someone you're not, and in this way get accolades. So Hiranyakashipu is obviously not a devotee, but Prabhupada said, he just like Ravana, he's a great scholar. So it's possible to know the ins and outs of the Bhagavad Gita, but really not have any faith in it. But he felt, well, I can use this part of the philosophy to console them. And as soon as I heard, realized what he's doing, I thought of when I went to my father's funeral. My mother was there. And I said, well, how can I console her? So I quoted the Bhagavad Gita, Dehi nosmin yata dehi. And she was very much, consoled by learning that, he's not really dead. He's went on to a better place. I don't know if I mentioned because I'm a devotee, he's probably doing better than he would have been done, But just the fact that he was still alive is a big thing. And this is more or less what Hiranyakashipu was saying. He's telling him, your beloved Hiranyaksha, he's still, he's his soul, and the soul separate from the body like that. Yeah. So he's misusing the philosophy because he's a demon, but it's serving its purpose here to console them. But he's not going to go into the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, especially not the 9th chapter. So that's but my only understanding here, because the last thing, he can't even take his own advice, because whether you want to call it he's furious or he's lamenting, but he was supremely affected by the death of his brother, and he became more of the archenemy of Vishnu, of Hari, and which got him into trouble eventually. And he had a serious encounter with Nrsingadev. So yeah, it's not realized, but in other words, he's repeating what he heard, and because he saw a good way that it could be used in the present situation. But he's far from a bhakta, at least in this incarnation. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.